Hi, how are you? Welcome to our chat for March, a brand new month on 360. Charlie is feisty as ever. You want to say hi? You want to say hi? Oh, feisty girl. Charlie's a Pisces. That's why it's her season. Go get him. So nice to see you guys in another new apartment, as always. Every time everybody sees me, I'm in a new apartment. That's like my MO. Charlie's lost her mind. Come here. Do you want to say hi? It's with you. Come here. She's crazy. Anyway, hope you guys are doing well. Hope everybody's feeling good. I'm excited about this time of year. I'm excited about this chat because we know I love productivity. And we are finally getting the green light to go ahead and be productive. So we have a really important month this year. If you guys remember back when we talked about New Year's and January 1st, I explained to you that most cultures, and especially ancient cultures, did not identify the 1st of January as the new year. Actually, most people believed that the astrological new year, which is synonymous with the vernal equinox, was the beginning of a new year as Pisces changed into Aries. So for many, Aries is the first sign in the zodiac, and it is the beginning of a brand new year. It's the time we start getting all of the energy of rebirth and renewal with spring. And it actually makes a lot more sense to be the time that we begin trying to grow things and create intentions and things like that. So most of the time with New Year's Eve, I'll tell people to create vision boards, create intentions. We choose a word for the year, and we usually write it on a piece of paper that can be buried. And the significance of it is really that we're putting an intention out into the world, which is a good thing to do at any time of the year, but we're anticipating the need to wait or to hold until the spring, until the energy comes for creation, because we really just don't have that energy in the winter. Something to consider really interesting. A lot of people don't think about this because if you live in one of the hemispheres, you kind of forget about the other hemisphere. But March 20th, the vernal equinox here on the northern hemisphere actually marks the opposite equinox in the southern hemisphere. So as we move into spring and birth and we get the energy of creation, the southern hemisphere goes into their fall and winter. So it's such a cool thing to think about how the planet is always in balance. While some of us are resting, the rest of us are creating, and then we switch places essentially. So this is kind of the natural order of things and the natural cycle of things. So the vernal equinox, if you don't know about it, it comes on the 20th of March this year. And it is the time when the sun goes directly over the equator line, right? The equatorial line, that imaginary line that divides the two hemispheres. At this time, there is in almost every place in the world, there is equal amounts of light as there is darkness, right? So there's the real feeling of balance and equilibrium. From the spiritual perspective, we also get the balance of the masculine and the feminine energy. So it's really a time for like a level playing field, both within the self and in the collective. So that's why it's such a powerful time for creation, because we can create the best work and we can create the most effectively when we're coming from a solid, balanced foundation, which is what the equinox provides. If you want to look it up, many cultures celebrate the vernal equinox. You have Holi, which is the festival in India where they throw all the colors around. It comes right around the time of the vernal equinox. Even Easter is like starts, around this time. Mexican culture, there's just so many cultures. You can look it up. It's such a cool thing to see how, just like, I always think it's fascinating that so many different cultures and religions and beliefs end up finding the same power points in the year or even on the planet. Like if you think about Jerusalem, almost every major religion has somehow landed and circled on Jerusalem as a holy land for them. So I just think that's such a cool thing that there's some synchronicity or like understanding in the energies that draws people to either periods of time in the year or places on the planet that have these like hot spots for energy. So this is one of two equinoxes that we get in the year, right? The next one comes in September with the autumnal equinox that will signify our transition out of this period of growth and into a period of rest. So I love this time of year because it gives you finally that push, right? A lot of people, without realizing it, start actually getting like really like, okay, now I'm finally going to do what I said I was going to do around the time of March, right? Whether it's you set an intention for your health, or for me, I always find like, while I have a deep consciousness that what I eat and what I consume, both with my eyes and with my ears and just everything, really affects the clarity of my channel and my ability to like channel clear information. It's hard for me to like be really strict about it until for some reason March comes around every year and I'm like chilling. Everything just snaps back to like me following the way of eating that clears my channel, not watching any TV, like all my habits that I pick up while I'm in the resting phase and there's space and it's okay to be cozy. Like March 1st, they're like, all right, never mind, we're done with that. Like we're moving into spring. My body really, really is in tune with this change. So what you may find is that you're feeling a boost, right? You're just suddenly things are a little bit easier than they were before. They take a little bit less work. You finally have the feeling of like, you know what? I really feel drawn to this thing and I'm really going to stick to it and put my focus on it. And I talk about this a little bit in the intro for the month, which is that sometimes the energy of movement or the energy of let's go forward can create a little bit of like panic. You know what I mean? People start being like, okay, now I have to go forward and try to create every single thing that I've ever felt compelled to create because, you know, I only have this 6-month gap and then I'm going to lose this momentum again, right? But just very much like you wouldn't be in the behind the wheel of the car and jam on the gas pedal and then close your eyes and wrench the steering wheel in a million directions. You shouldn't do that with your energy either, right? One of the key and critical points to pressing the gas being actually useful is focus and direction, right? Like it's very important that you realize that when we get this energy of creation, when it's soul-led creation and it's not ego creation, it should not be that scattered. It should not be something that causes you to completely deplete your energy or resources. It should not be something that causes you to be in a series, right? That should be in work or, you know, stress or like, I have to be working all hours of the day and night. Like, it's really not necessary to be that, right? I mean, occasionally I've been called into things like that when I'm building something huge, but most of the time these periods get that way when my ego takes over. When my ego starts being like, not letting me lay one plan. This is something I see a lot when I mentor people as well. Before they even begin to lay one plan or get anywhere with one plan, their mind starts being like, oh, but if we do this and we do this and we do this and we do this, and this could be even more effective, we can make more money here. And I'm like, we don't even have anything yet. We have nothing. You know what I mean? So like sometimes you can really be your own worst enemy when you're trying to do too many things at once. Things have to bloom like a flower, right? They have to go on a steady trajectory. And then when they hit a point of ease, they can open and go in a million directions at once. But that will kind of happen on its own. And if you try to do that too early while it's just in the seedling phase, you can usually deplete the energy and hit burnout or hit critical mass where the system has too many things happening at once. Or you can run the risk of changing this soul creation into an ego creation, where now it's just about ticking things off a list and proving you can do this much and making this amount of money and being X, Y, and Z productive. And that's a lot of what we talked about in our last chat that we really want to be careful of when we're in states of creation, right? We still want to be leaving space for intuitive hits to come through, space for a redirection if necessary, space to get messages that tell us you're really close, but here's how we need to shift things, right? So it's really important that you're not burnt down to zero and that you're not, you know, utilizing every spare second of energy to create something. That's usually a good sign that you've fallen into an ego trap. So something else that can be happening around this time of year, if you are not in the place that I'm in, which a lot of people do come to, which is just like ease and lightness. And like, even if we're called to do difficult tasks, we still have the enthusiasm of like potential energy building behind us, that it seems less difficult to do those tasks, right? Or you could come face to face with a situation where you feel more trapped, more angry, more sad, more hopeless or distressed, right? This can also be a symptom of this time of year, right? Nothing's ever just one thing. So this can happen if if you picture it this way, right? If you've built yourself into a trap somehow, whether it's with your professional life, your personal life, usually you do it in one place, you're doing it every place. But if you've built yourself into some kind of constriction, then around the time that you get the urge to really stretch, you're going to feel the most frustrated because you're going to feel the tightness of the walls that you built more than ever right now, right? When you're hibernating, the cave is fun, but when it's time to stretch and explore, the cave is really constrictive. So it could be a time of year where if you are having those feelings of stress, of aggravation, of frustration, that it's asking you to realize and to check in with where you may have constricted yourself, where maybe the friends around you, the job that you've taken, the steps that you're taking, even the goal that you have may be too small, right? And it may be constricting the energy flow. So it's important to kind of notice that as well. Some people will be like, oh, I don't have that burst of energy, so it's not working, right? Like I'm broken, I'm not receiving that message. And I'm like, no, you can get a lot of different feelings, right? And it's usually trying to bring you to this feeling of productivity and movement because we work best when we work together. So typically the cycles of the planet and the cycles of nature are set up to move the entire collective in certain directions, right? And I think the balance that I was speaking of in the beauty in the northern and the southern hemisphere is how we keep it in balance while that's happening. But realistically, spring and summer, the more we can get people going in the direction of creation, the better, because more people creating at the same time creates a unit of people that are building something together, right? So energetically, this is really favorable because you'll be putting the energy of creation out into the collective. And in turn, you'll be able to pull the energy of creation down from the collective, which is really nice. And it's a big part of the way that we get momentum as spiritual beings. So you're also getting that support from nature, right? Nature is going to start to bloom. Everything is going to come back to life in this period of time. So you're going to have that support, which is a beautiful thing. And just reminds us, I think, to stay connected to everything. So you're also faced in this time a lot with the cycle of death and rebirth. It's not weird that a lot of babies are born around this time. This is the time for fertility, for birth, right? People become pregnant around this time. This is something that happens in the collective because it is supported energetically by this period of time. People choose to get married around this time. It makes a lot of sense, right? So it can also bring into question for you your feelings about life and death, right? A lot of people come to grips during these first couple weeks of March with how do they feel about death? How do they feel about knowing that we are starting a cycle that's exciting, but we are starting it understanding that it's temporary, right? This is something that people really have trouble with. And when you are at war with temporality, you're at war with the human experience, right? And that's something that the faster we can start to undo it, the faster we can be excited about, or at least accept that this will be an exciting period of time, but it will also be a short period of time that will be followed by another fall and winter. The better we can use the time and really see it for the blessing that it is, right? And not have it overshadowed with fear that this is not going to last and this is all we get, right? Like, because that colors it and contaminates it in a way that ruins our ability to remain open, right? So I think people are more controlled and more fearful than they realize of endings, losing things, and death. Really, really more than you realize, because in our current culture, it's not really typical to consider death or to talk about death on a consistent or normal basis. People will say, like, I don't want to talk about that, I don't want to think about that. And it's just it's something that's really brushed under the rug and becomes very serious and severe. And I think that's a big mistake, because I think for all of us to be afraid of something that is coming for everyone is just a lot of energy wasted, right? We don't even have any evidence that death is a bad thing. We just know that death is a doorway to something else, and we truly don't know to what that is. For many people, our belief that it leads us back to God, it's strange to be afraid of it. You know what I mean? Why are we scared of that? We should be excited about that. You know what I mean? Yes, excited about life and about being in the physical, of course, as well. But like I said, even if you can't get excited about it, you could accept it and just know that it's one of the beautiful things that binds us all together as humans. No matter what else we choose, no matter what else we do, that will be an experience that will come for us all, that every human being will have, every living being will have. So it's kind of cool. It's connective. It's a thread in that way. So finding ways to make your peace with it at least is really will be valuable for your ability to produce things, right? The reason that the feeling of death in the body and the feeling of creation tie together is because a lot of the time this tie to the fear of death ties to the fear that maybe all this is pointless. If everything is going to die, including me, then really what's the point of any of this, right? And when that happens, it makes it difficult for us to create physical, tangible things, right? Because there is the understanding that what goes up must come down. And it's likely that the things that you create in this season won't live forever. Nothing really lives forever, right? Some things go on longer than others, but nothing really lives forever. Nothing's really eternal besides the being and the soul and God and things of like that are of energetic nature. But things that are in the physical, like they really are not permanent, right? And if we have an issue with that, then it could detract us or deter us from really moving forward with productivity, right? And I know a lot of this can be subconscious. So you're not thinking, well, I don't want to make this because I'm going to die, but it could be in there somewhere. You know what I mean? Or I don't want to make this because in 5 years, maybe this won't exist anymore. And what was the point of creating it? But there is a purpose, right? Everything is called into creation at its time. So just because we don't always see something ripple on forever doesn't mean that it isn't rippling on forever, right? Sometimes you open a business for 3 years and so many people are changed by the experience they have there that they carry it forward through their whole lives and they impart some things they learned to their children and to their children and to their children, right? In that way, energetic ripples go on through space and time. And so knowing how and why something is going to persist past you, just because sometimes the physical aspects of it don't persist, it's just silly, especially when we have so many stories, right? I mean, we think of the story even of Jesus, right? Like dying and being resurrected. And it's an understanding that like we can transcend the death of something, and sometimes the rebirth of something that comes in another form is more powerful because it died before, you know. So this is a human concept that we are taught over and over again, and that we're shown over and over again, that even though something doesn't take the exact same form doesn't mean that it doesn't come back and that it doesn't live on, and that it's the energy of it won't be immortal in some way. And that alone, you know, makes it valuable, makes it worth creating, you know? So, and that's one of the biggest ways to come to terms with and to find some peace with the idea of death, because everything that your energy has ever touched has been changed by you, by your energy, and your of a trace, a remnant of your energy lives on in everything that you've ever done. And in that way, you do live forever, right? You do exist forever. The changes that you make do impact the system forever. And in that way, they cannot not be worthwhile. They are changing things. Your existence changes things. And so create stuff, you know, if you feel compelled to create things, put them out into the world, let the world be changed by your creation. You know, if you don't change the world with your creation, then you're going to change the world with your fear. And that's your decision. You know, that's a decision unto yourself. Would you rather change the world with your doubt and with your, you know, hesitance, or would you rather change it with your enthusiasm and your creation and your joy for life? Because you're going to change the world and impact it either way. So, you know, knowing that, I think, arms us with the ability to move forward in power. So yeah, I'm excited. I love the equinox, and I wanted to make this our theme because this month is almost really balanced by the equinox, in that we haven't gotten there yet, right? The potential energy is building, but now that you have a consciousness that around the 20th of this month, we're going to hit that point of perfect balance, and that is going to kick off a period of movement for you. What is going on with my eyeball? That is going to perpetuate for a few months here. You have time now. Reassess, right? We talked about this. If your goal or your plan or your creation is the track that you're going to follow and you are the train, then check both things one more time. Am I really as clear as I can be, right? Where am I maybe creating sludge? Where am I too attached to old patterns, right? Like I said in my message, one of the things that's the hardest for us about creation and forward movement is that things must be left behind. And as we get better at living in alignment and living with consciousness, sometimes and most of the time, the things that we have to leave behind are things that we still love and enjoy, right? This is not a concept that people think about or talk about often. We assume, oh, you have to leave things that don't serve you. But sometimes you have to leave things that serve you in this moment because you have a consciousness that they're too small to serve you in the next moment, right? If you want things to keep getting bigger and bigger, and you do come to a place of contentment in your life, then what you have right now might be good enough, might be something you love, but it may not serve you. It may not be big enough or grand enough or expansive enough to serve you in your next season. And if you're constantly clutching it, then you don't have space to take on something new, right? So it's with grace that we must let things move. And if you have been, it's a good time. If you've been doing something for a really long time, right? Maybe it's time to change it. Maybe it's time to give it a sidebar and focus on something different for a moment, right? Or if you've been focusing on something for a long time that you've really been like, I've been focused on it, but I'm not really doing it. Well, let's get to it. Let's really put 100% into it, right? For me, I started feeling it in the middle of last month, and now it's like really upon me that realistically teaching dance being the main source of my focus, it's over. I've outgrown this period of my life. And it's a hard pill for me to swallow because A, I love it. B, it comes naturally to me. It's been a whole portion of my life in teaching. And right now my classes are packed. They're doing really well. So getting the feeling that maybe dance should not be my main focus right in this season is like a double-edged sword for me. Now, that does not mean I need to not dance at all and never need to teach again and I need to throw it completely down the drain. But it also means that if I look at my schedule and I see that for the past 15 years, dance has taken up 20 hours of my day, 6 days a week, I can give it a sidebar and I can decide, man, I have so many other skills and passions that I've really wanted to dive into and be great with. I love music. I've always wanted to learn an instrument. I just got certified as a sound healer. I really want to dive into that. I've really been dying to finish my yoga certification. I love to travel, to lead my retreats, to build things here in the spiritual community, take on spiritual practices myself. I love hosting. I love entertainment. All these other loves, like they need some focus and time and dedication as well, right? And they're calling me forward because it will be more expansive for me now. If I'm honest, while I still love teaching dance and it's expansive in that way, I've accomplished everything and more that I ever set out to do with dance. Like, I can't think of another goal. I don't have one. Like, and that's kind of a sign that it's like, okay, like, it doesn't mean quit, doesn't mean stop doing it altogether. If you love it, it's a great pastime, but for it to continue to be the main focus of my train doesn't make a lot of sense when I don't really have any more goals for myself and I have no more stations I'm trying to get to. So, now I'm just waiting for a smidge more clarity. Oh, I got it. It was Charlie's hair in my eye. Everyone, we're good. I'm waiting for a smidge more clarity that I know is going to come as the 20th comes. And then I'm going to just go really hard towards the next thing. And I'm going to let what has to be shed or what has to take a back seat do that so that I can have more energy for creation of the next thing, right? Of the next and the next, the next. And for a lot of us, without realizing it, 2020 kind of gave you that gift, right? I got the gift of putting dance on the shelf and really focusing on something. And this community is what was born from that moment, right? But I had to have dance physically ripped away from me, right? My ability to teach ripped away from me because I didn't want to put it down because I loved it and I'm comfortable. And it's hard to not do things that we love and that we're comfortable with. But I would say take a look now, ask yourself something similar, like, where does this still excite me? Where do I still feel goals with this? Where do I still feel called with this? And if the answers are like, I don't, I just love it and I'm comfortable here, then maybe that's something that needs to take a back seat and not take up as much time as it used to, so that you can really take this energetic wave that's going to come through and ride it into the next thing that is a bit more expansive, right? The beauty is, often, even if we have to temporarily release something or someone that we love, the waves come back around and somehow they go like this. And you're like, oh my gosh, now all those skills and all that stuff I built in this season will come together with all these skills and all the things I built in this season. And they're going to make this massive, expansive creation of things that, you know, will be even bigger and better than it was before, all because I had done all these things, right? I mean, even for me, one of the things that I was kind of at war with is I went to college and I studied neuroscience, and then I became a dancer. And I was like, well, why did I spend 4 years studying neuroscience when I could have just been training in dance, you know? And that's what I really ended up doing. But lo and behold, now 10 years later, I'm a mentor and I'm a life coach, and understanding the brain and psychology is actually a major part of the coaching that I do. And if I had not had that foundation that I set in that season all those years ago, this would have been a much more difficult transition, or maybe an impossible one to make. So sometimes it's really understanding that we won't see everything until we get to the end. So a lot of these motions and a lot of this gas pedal movement has to be taken in faith that, man, I really have a calling towards something. And yes, going towards one thing is going to cause me to move away from another, because that is the experience of momentum and direction, right? We get closer to this point and further from this one. And sometimes that's difficult, right? Sometimes it's easy. In the earlier stages of my awakening, it was easy because the points I was at sucked. So it was easy to be like, well, I'll see you later. I'm going here now. But once the points stop sucking and your life starts being pretty good, then this journey is painful and exciting at the same time, because it's leaving things we love and moving towards things we love. And there is this feeling of a pull. And again, making peace with that duality and with the reality that while we try to make things, you know, one thing, they rarely ever are. You know, it's a big belief of mine that one of the reason that women suffer so much after they birth children is because society expects that that's always just a happy, joyful time, and that has to always be so great. But for most women, it's also coming with the mourning of their old body, of their old life, and they're not allowed to have both of those experiences at once, the joy of the birth and the grief of the loss. And without being able to have both of those experiences at once, we're always going to be at war with the self, because there are very few beginnings that don't come with the pain of an ending. And being able to feel and process those together is key to remaining balanced and calm and happy as you move forward. So, like I said, we have a few weeks here. We have like a little less than 20 days until the equinox approaches. And in this time, it's a good time to realize, okay, what should we maybe start releasing? What have I been giving too much time and energy to that's not really in a growth period? Where else am I getting this little inkling that's like, focus on this, focus on this, focus on this? Do it, right? For some people, their focus pull for this season will be a financial pull. It won't necessarily be a pull towards something that they're passionate about. And that's because you need a financial foundation in a 3D grid in order to actually build a passion project. So a lot of people resist that, and they're like, I just want to do what I love to do. But sometimes if the scale of your life is already, you know, in motion, your dream is already laid forward, then source is telling you, okay, this is a building phase. So this period of momentum, you're going to use it to build, and you're going to build a financial stability. And that may be with something that you don't really like, but that's only because we know next spring, you're going to have this egg of finance that we can use towards building the thing you like, you know, or we can just go to war with ourselves every year and have not enough resources. When we're pulling you towards creating resources, you're ignoring it, you know? So periods of creation are not always about creating from your, like, you know, passions, or it doesn't always have to be artistic creation. It's creation in general. It's the bringing of things forth, right, into your energetic experience. Sure, when you're an energetic being, you can make that fun, even if it's not your like first choice task. Still, the accumulation of things or the creation of things has fun and excitement and enthusiasm behind it, right? Any of you who live on the 3D grid, I'm sure you've gotten the feeling of cashing that big check, or watching your bank account balance go up, or watching your credit score go up, and being like, I am creating something, right? I'm creating wealth, or I'm creating, you know, movement on a 3D grid. And at the end of the day, like I said, for most of us, even though wealth is a financial, when wealth and finances are a three-dimensional construct, for most of us, we want the things we create to work in a three-dimensional world. We don't want to take our take our creations and move them to Mars, right? We want to use them here on Earth in cities where people are mostly functioning in the three-dimensional grid, where all of the structures of the city are on a three-dimensional grid. So sure, we can use 5D techniques to manipulate the grid a little bit, but at the end of the day, like, there's still going to be a financial component to the grid. So kind of understanding that as well, that makes things more complex. Is complexify a word? It should be. Complexifies things. I like that. Someone look that up. Wow. Anyway, does anybody have any questions for me so far? I see one in the chat. Katie said, how do you know if old patterns aren't serving you while being patient? I think you mean while being patient, that it may take time. So how do you know if old patterns aren't serving you? I would imagine it would be a lot like the way I just kind of explained, is that when you really ask yourself, when you think about creation, you're thinking about forward movement and expansion. And for me, that's a lot about visualizing myself with a habit and asking myself, if this habit was amplified, right? If this was so much bigger than it is right now, first of all, would I enjoy it? Second of all, would it be effective? And third of all, would it fill me up, right? Would it be something that I'm like, wow, that experience that big was mind-blowing to me? You know what I mean? And if not, then it's probably a sign that a pattern or a path has gotten a little too small. I kind of think about scaling things, and not only scaling them in quantity, right? Not necessarily having more people in the room, but also in depth. Is the experience effective? Are people being moved by it, right? So, for example, with my dance classes, if I ask myself, would I like to teach more students? No, I can't teach any more students. I've taught rooms of 300, I've taught rooms of 10, I've taught rooms of 20, I've taught. Would I like to teach more places? I've taught everywhere I ever wanted to teach. Would I like to have deeper interactions with my students? No, I've done all these things. I'm at the edge, right? I'm like, yeah, I mean, maybe in minuscule, a little bigger, a little this, a little deeper, but is there expansive room for me to lean in and be like, I want a deeper experience with teaching? No, not really. I've really come to the edges of that, right? But when I think about my retreats, for example, would I like to do a retreat with a lot more people? Yeah. And I can see that, and I can feel it, and it buzzes in my body. Like I could see like 50 people out like camping and like doing spiritual practices and meditation and sending love into the universe. Like I could see that, right? And would I like to have even more transformative experiences on retreats? Yes. Like right now they're already really transformative, but I could see even like webs of depth where like everything and everyone in the whole world will change as a result of it. And that we're not there yet, right? We're not touching it yet. We're on the track, but with a little gas, we could really blow that into like into outer space, I think. So like, when I think about it that way too, like as a spiritual teacher, how much more is there for me to learn, for me to teach, for me to speak, people for me to reach, people for me to interface with, people for me to learn from? It's like, I can't even quantify it. Like the things I want to do and the things I want to learn and how many people I want to teach and panels I want to speak on and companies I want to work with. Like I couldn't even list. It's so many, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of right there, like one of the ways I look at like path and pattern as far as expansiveness, and where maybe I'm being called next. So maybe that helps you. But I think it doesn't really require patience, because when you do what you need to do, then you're going to have presence. So when you're present, then you can't be impatient, right? To me, being the most impatient person in the world, I can tell you this. The antidote to my impatience was presence. Impatience comes from a look into the future and a comparison of the present moment to the future desire, right? Then we get impatient. We want to get over here, right? But if you're not doing that, right? If you're just in knowing that there is expansion here, I know it, I trust it, I feel it, I've seen it, and then you get to the present moment and you focus on this portion of your track, then there's nothing to be impatient about, because we are building towards that. We know we are. We don't care when we get there. We don't care what it looks like when we get there because we know we're going towards it. We're sure. We have the direction, we have the focus, and now we're adding the momentum. And so even the journey is genuinely exciting. Every moment of a brick laid, every time one more person signs up for a retreat, every time I post a retreat and it sells out a little faster with even one more experience, right? Every time I get one more piece of feedback that like clears something up for me, I get one more hit that's like, oh, that's where we're going next. Every single thing is exciting to me. There's nothing to be impatient about just because I'm not at 50 or I'm not at this level yet. Like there's no impatience to get there to me because I truly trust that every step along the way is preparing me to be ready for that. And is preparing me to maybe even take in something bigger than I can see and feel, right? So I think that's kind of how you don't get impatient, if that answers. My mom's so concerned with me quitting dance. So she's like, can you do that without taking away the innate talent of dancing and teaching dance to those that need you? I think that I will absolutely be able to do that. And I think I'll absolutely be able to do it effortlessly because my experience as a dancer and a teacher has expanded. It's everywhere. It is part of the being that I am. It's part of the energy that I put out into the world for 35 years since I started dance, that this is who I am and this is what I do, right? And now as an instructor for more than 20 years, 2 decades on almost every continent and every city in the United States, foundation is laid that if somebody needs me, they can pull that thread and find me. And I won't be resistant to teaching. If someone offers me a job to teach and I feel called to do it, it's not that I'm like, oh, I'm never doing that. That's not my focus. But there's a big difference between teaching a class a week and going where I'm called to mentor or teach someone and sitting every day and actively like I used to, right, trying to set up tours and trying to message people and going here and going there and who wants this and who wants that, right? Maybe I'm just actively planning it less and pulling it less into my experience because my active planning energy is going to go into new things, into learning new things, planning new things, creating new things. So it's not a rejection of what we did before. And I tell this to people all the time. You don't have to leave the past through like a firm rejection of it. We're not this anymore, right? You can, especially if you were in an abusive phase or there was an aspect of yourself that you really want to resist or reject. But typically the rejection of things ends up imploding eventually, right? It ends up becoming something that bites you in the ass later on. So I'm not rejecting myself as a dancer and a teacher. I'm still those things. I will probably always be those things. Sometimes I get little images of myself as like a crazy old lady still teaching dance and like, people still like loving that experience, I don't have any desire to not dance anymore. I think that's just who I'll always have that with me. But there's a difference between like rejecting it and resisting it and people saying, here's a beautiful opportunity in dance and me saying, oh, I'm not doing that, right? Why would I do that, right? There's no need for that. When I'm in periods of expansion and creation, then it's more things, not less, right? But there's still a difference in focus, right? And focused creation on one thing will cause focused creation to be pulled away from something else. So yeah, my mom wants me to open a dance school. Big thing. I probably won't open a dance school specifically, but I will open a space eventually that will have dance involved. So that will make you happy, I think. Anybody have any other questions for me? Don't be shy. Questions about your own goals, about my goals, about what I'm doing, about, I don't know, anything. Come here. Come here while they're thinking of questions. You come here and say hi. While they're thinking of questions. Oh my God. Cozy lady. Come say hi. Do you have a question? Charlie has one question today. When can I get my bony? Mommy. Charlie got her bony yesterday. It's Pisces season for real. Charlie felt her season click. She literally got her bony. Her birthday's almost here, but she got her bony. And if you guys know my dog, then you know that, look at this exhale. She hates them telling this story. You know that I can give her a bone or a treat and I could take it away from her. or I can like lick it and she'll let me have it. I don't really lick it, but I pretend. But she shares with me. And yesterday I went to take her bone and she turned into Cujo and tried to kill me and was, look at this. What are these? And she was growling and like this. I was like, are you kidding me? How could you? I know you're sorry, but how could you do that to me? And then crazy old beast got up and started drinking from the toilet. What dog is this? In all her years, she's throwing a fit for the ages. I've never seen it. Last night, walk, refuses to go potty. This morning, walk, half an hour, refuses to go potty. Why Bibago? Show them your belly. Look at the belly. The spiritual content you didn't know you needed. The demon. I love you. Sit nice. That's where her bone is, up there. The drama over this bone, I can't even. This is what this is all about. You want this? Give me a kiss. Here. Oy. A demon. Anyway. Did anyone else have any questions? I didn't, Katie, more, okay. Katie, you holding us down today. She said, how do you realize the whys and hows from a goal before you complete a goal or after you've completed a goal? I've noticed it limits the process, and at times I've noticed attaching to the whys and hows. The whys and hows, like, why is this my goal and how do I do it? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like why it is a goal, or even like how did it happen, or why did it happen, or like why did this become?
How do you detach from that? Well, why does that interest you? Like, why do you want to know why it's a goal?
I don't know. I just feel like subconsciously I'm doing that, and I just noticed that. That's something I did, and I was kind of wondering how to.
Well, this is like a big one, I think, that comes back down to like not necessarily trusting. I think deep down our control issues come from lack of trust. And I ultimately think going back to your connection with source or universe or God or Jesus or Buddha or Allah or whoever you believe in, is how we circumvent the whys. Because ultimately you have to remember that when you're getting a plan laid, it looks a lot like this is what you can see, right? A point on the map. And you're like, that's just a dot. What is that for? That doesn't make sense. Why am I called to do this? Why does this make sense? How is this? What even does this mean? It's just one point. I can't see anything else, right? But the energy above you that's coming from source or God or spirit can see that dot in a massive spiraling action, right? And seeing how it's going to unravel over the course of your life, and can see how it's going to affect a million other spirals that are around you and that are going to be impacted by the cycle you're in, right? It's also sometimes we think that we're being compelled to start something new, but actually once we get started on it, we're like, oh, it's actually not really new. It's kind of the same, right? Like, for example, I got called and compelled to become a spiritual teacher or advisor, but it's not really a new path for me. I've actually been doing this the whole time. I just didn't really know what I was doing. I was kind of doing it either by accident or just not focused, or, I didn't know that I was doing this until I followed the point on the map, and it took me into a spiral that I realized, wow, not only does the spiral go up, but it also goes down into the roots of who I've been this whole time. I just didn't know it. I didn't see it, So I think a lot of it comes down to just having that faith and trusting that if we are constantly calling God into our lives, or we're calling that forward and we're asking for guidance, then it's kind of strange to get guidance that comes in the form of intuition and then say, why are we doing this? Well, what do you mean? You just asked us to guide you, so we're guiding you. What do you mean why? What do you mean how? Like, it's kind of like also understanding. I think sometimes the path is not shown to us in its completeness, one, because the ingredient of faith makes something even more magical and special when it's actually completed. Two, I think even if we were told the truth and the depth of something, that our brains would not be able to comprehend it. You know what I mean? Like the understanding of what this is will come to you when it's complete. And that may be 2, 3 years from now. And in that 2 or 3 years of time, the growth, the experiences, the life that you have, the transformations you undergo, they're going to be what make it so that you can understand this. You know what I mean? So it's kind of understanding that even if you were given the answer to what this is, it would probably come in Japanese. And you'd be like, this doesn't mean anything to me. I don't understand it. But you don't realize that over the next 3 years or 3 months or 6 years or 5 months or however long this cycle is, you're going to be learning Japanese. So when you get there, you're going to be like, oh, now I get it. You know what I mean? Like it's understanding that the time in the cycle is preparing us to understand the message as well. Which is why I think we don't get the whole answer up front of what it is and how it is. So again, it comes back to trust and it comes back to faith. It comes back to like, does this feel right? Am I really being guided to it? And you can see when what you're doing has a positive impact on your environment, right? Is my environment feeling supported or loving or happy or joyful, or are we all like vibing with this, or is this bringing darkness on myself and on the planet, right? It's pretty clear when something comes from God versus when it comes from someplace else. You know what I mean? Does that answer your question, Katie?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So Kenny said, how do you find how to find the resources to accomplish the goal is hard. Like the answer to the calling has come, but I don't want to limit the possibilities due to not knowing the how. Doing nothing feels unproductive, but not knowing the exact direction makes me feel like I have to be still. I feel there's some kind of in between, but I don't know. Yeah, this happens a lot. This is a super relatable experience that people have. Would you be open to telling me like more specifics about what you're talking about exactly? Or do you want me to just go with the vague? Charlie wants to kill someone in the hallway.
Well, it's kind of hard. So I have always like known that I just really, I mean, for most of my life, I've always kind of done the whole 9 to 5 kind of thing, but I've never really, it's one of those things like I don't, like when I do my job, I'll do my job how I'm supposed to do it. But it's like I'm just doing it to do it. I don't really enjoy it. A lot of times I don't feel like I'm making what I should be making for what I'm doing and things of that nature. So I found a way where I feel like I can expand in ways on things that other things that I love outside of what I've been doing in terms of working with kids. And I found a way where I feel like it's exactly what I'm supposed to do. I just don't know how to do it. And it's like it comes from like resources. I know a way of how I can expand in terms of building a program and things of that nature, something that I don't have to be in attendance to still make more than what I'm doing. I mean, the biggest way to just say it involves like my tutoring. Like I always do all this tutoring, but it takes up so much of my day. Makes me nice money, but like I feel like I can do that same exact thing and reach more people in an aspect where I don't have to be there.
Right. And so the resources that you feel that would require are what?
So I feel like in terms of like my whole thing is I want to like build a program, like a specific like program, not something where I have to necessarily have someone and they go and they tutor, not like a tutoring thing, but like actually being able to build either an app or something of that nature. I just don't know how to do those things because I'm not like crazy tech savvy or anything like that.
Yeah, but actually, I think it's much simpler than you realize, like to get started, especially now that there are so many ways to build online websites for like very minimal price. Yes, it might not start in the glossy high tech way that you want, but sometimes you just have to start. I didn't want to start this program on Patreon, but this was the cheapest way for me to start this program, and it really required nothing. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have to build a platform. I didn't have to do anything other than do what I knew how to do, which was upload things onto YouTube and then post the links onto Patreon. So I think a lot of it is the understanding that we have to create something, or we get this idea that like it has to be X, Y, and Z, but often that's really not true. Like often the resources are already available to you, or resources are already available to you, but we're overstepping that because we're like, we didn't even think to look at that. We were just kind of going ahead to like, I don't know how to build an app, right? But I mean, right now, the world turned really quickly to online instruction, right? So I've been saying this a lot actually to people who do what you do. I actually kind of gave similar advice to Danny, which is like building a curriculum and posting online modules is like the greatest thing to do, because you send the online module and then you do a 15-minute Q&A after they watch it, right? You don't have trouble with fractions, watch the fraction module. Hit me if you still have a question. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to sit with you for everything, right? And then you can, instead of doing hour-long sessions, you're doing 15-minute sessions because they watched your hour-long session already about fractions. You know what I mean? So I think it's a really good idea, and it's a great way to free up time and to move people through the system. But realistically, the whole world changed to that. And so people who had no experience in doing it did it really easily. They just built a website, threw YouTube videos up, and people buy it and pay for the course, right? Like, I don't know the exact how to do it because I haven't tried, but I know it's simpler than it used to be. And I know it's a lot of people have done it, which means the energy for doing it is out there. So I think if you actually just go and look at like build a website myself and like make an online program myself, there's going to be a lot of tutorials on how to do it. And I bet you it won't even cost you that much money. You can host a domain site for anywhere between $5 and $20 a month. That's it. And you can accept payments on there. You can post videos on there. You can make as many tabs as you want on there. You know, so people think it's like this crazy thing, but I think maybe you're overestimating how hard it is and underestimating how smart you are. You know, it's a tutoring company, so you got to be able to teach people shit. So teach yourself how to make a website. It's really not as hard as it sounds. So I would start there. Maybe it's not the website of your dreams. Maybe it's not, you know, everything you can envision it becoming, but it's the first step on the path. It's the track being laid where you can say, okay, go to kendraschool.com and watch these things, or buy, you know, whatever it looks like, you know, whatever it is that how exactly you want to set it up. But I think you can get it rolling faster than you realize that you can. And once it's making money, then the resources come from that. You know what I mean? So you already know how to use a camera, you know how to post things onto YouTube, you know how to, you know how to do basic things, and there's not much more required than that. Yeah, someday you're going to want to have a real professional camera person and someone build out an app and somebody make it glossy. But until that point, it could still be effective, you know, and it could still be money making, and it could still be the foundation where later on you could show your developer and say, here's what I built, here's what I like, here's what I don't like. That's even the best way to build a site, you know? So I would just say the best way to accumulate resources is to first believe that resources are always available to you, and to look right under your nose. What's available to me? You know what I mean? What do I have right now? Right? I have the internet. Let me look up how to create my own website, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, I think you maybe already have your own website, but you know, look at what's first available right under your nose. Like everything else, the feeling that I don't have enough resources leads to less resources, right? So it has to come from a feeling of like, I have everything I need. I have all the information. I have the body of students. I have the body of knowledge. I have the resources. I have money. I have a roof over my head. What else do I need? People have started with much less, actually, you know? So believing that you have the skills to at least get started is going to be the key. And I really think that if you take a few minutes and see like, all right, if I'm not saying I can't, like, what can I do? You know, like if it was do or die, you've got to figure this out for yourself and you got to start right now. What could you do? You know what I mean? Does that make sense what I'm saying? You can talk to me.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Peppermint? I feel like things have been busy so great recently in terms of flowing closer towards my goals. Do you have any advice on pausing to get clear for clear intentions of goals or new specific goals moving forward this month? Well, you have a lot of questions for me in here. Okay. Do you have any advice on pausing to get clear? So I would just say, pausing to get clear intentions of your goals moving forward in this month. You don't necessarily need to pause. You paused a lot. We've been on pause. It's been cold, it's been wet, it's been dry, whatever the hell's going on. It's been paused. We've been paused. So you don't even need to necessarily pause. You just need to get clear. And clarity, like I said, comes from removing things you don't need. for the month of March, I don't watch TV. I don't put it on. I don't watch Netflix. I don't watch anything. If I want to watch something, I put on something on Gaia. I put on a documentary, something that's informational to me in some way. But I don't watch any TV. I really, really minimize the use of my phone. I sleep with my phone across the room. I wake up in the morning and I don't touch my phone until I've already like gotten out of bed, most days when I can. If I'm like really behind on something, I may break that rule, but it's rare. I try not to get on and just scroll, right? That's out. It's too much information that causes confusion for me. I also get very heavy on that. I had posted an anti-inflammatory way of life for you guys a long time ago. And I go back to that way of eating because for me, that's the cleanest. I don't take in animal products. I don't eat dairy. I don't eat any processed foods. Clears up my channel. Because the type of information that we get this month feels more like a bullet. Like it feels more like a rush of energy. And actually, I think we get more clarity this month from being out and doing. Like from getting out in the world, coming back into society, being in nature, creating a couple little things. And then from that one small creation, you get the burst of energy that's like, ooh, that was close, but that wasn't quite it. This is what it was supposed to be, right? There'll be hits and misses and you'll be like, oh, okay, I see that. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is kind of a moment of like a little trial and error to get out and see what it is, right? Lightly plus press the gas first and see, oh, okay, we're in pretty good shape. Or that wasn't it, we're going this way now. So we're getting called more into active intuition than passive intuition, which I think we've been in for the past phase of time. So I would just say, instead of worrying about still, it's more about being clear, because stillness becomes a state of being when you're clear. Like I honestly feel stillness in me even when I'm moving a lot of the time now, because I'm not moving from panic. I'm not moving from, I gotta get things done. I'm like moving because I'm enjoying moving, right? Or I'm outside because I'm truly at peace with being outside, or whatever it is. So I think getting to that space is really kind of the key to getting like super clear on where you're being called. How was my trip away? Did I find that helped me get clearer for my goals for the month? Yes, I found that my trip away was a pain in my ass for a couple of reasons. Okay, so one of the reasons was I've thought and I intended for my trip away to give me clarity on what I was supposed to do next. And while I was there, the universe really handed me a slap that was like, why are you worried about what comes next? Like, we are not going to advise you on what comes next. We're going to advise you on what comes now. And that's the lesson I always teach, but for whatever reason, I'm deaf to myself sometimes. So I'm always thinking like, where am I going to go next? Where am I going to live next? What's going to happen next month? And it's like, girl, you just got finished saying like, don't be in the future, be in the present. So we're not going to unfold what happens next month. Basically, the reason I got clarity was because they just explained to me the clarity was there the whole time. What you're supposed to be doing now has always been available to you, but you have been missing it because you've been worried about what you're going to do next. And in that experience of being distracted by the nextness, you've missed the nowness. And so they realigned my ass real fast, which was kind of annoying to me, because it was like, oh, the whole time that I've been at war with this, 3 months, I've been doing this for 3 months. I don't know what I'm gonna do next. They've been like, why are you talking about this? Like, why are you even worried about this? Like, just do what you're doing now. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, you already know this information. Apply it. When it finally hit me, I laughed a lot and was like, you're stupid. But yeah, so for that reason, it was very useful to me. So it gave me clarity on now. I wasn't even in now. I was worried about next month. It was a lot of concern about next month and next place and next this and next that, and much less concern about now. So now I have more clarity about now because I'm actually thinking about now. So, very basic. The answers we always get back from universe are really simple, which is annoying, because then you end up being like, oh, I kind of knew that. So why did I suffer? Why was I doing that? Any ideas for using this energy in the full moon? Yes. So the energy in the full moon is in Virgo. This energy of this full moon is everything we've just been talking about. This energy is about creation. It's about supercharging a goal forward. It's about finally letting go of things that, we've been clinging to, which, like I said, sometimes we cling to things for negative reasons, but sometimes we cling to them because we love them. We don't want to give them up, but it's really time to like cut the shit and understand like everything can't go everywhere. You know, some parts of your journey have to be for just you. Some are for with a certain tribe of people. Sometimes that tribe of people needs to disband and then come back together. Sometimes it needs to disband permanently, but like, we got to cut the shit and like, let things go. Right. And we have to let it go because we trust and believe that it's moving us towards a much bigger, much more expansive path. Right. We feel that because we know it, because we're being called towards it. Right. Because that frustration that we have is a sign that we have an awareness that there is something else that we're not touching yet, and that we desire to touch it. We want to experience life, right? Like, the joy of life is in the experience and of the depth of it, of the vastness of it, not of just one little part of it, right? There's so much to have and experience, and we as humans desire to get out there and do it. So we have to move, you know, with less attachment. So like you always do, it's a good time to go through and decide, what am I letting go of? You know, if you can't get there specifically yet, if you're not sure, then just generally letting go of people, places, habits, patterns, thoughts that don't serve me, that don't serve my ultimate goal. Write them on the paper and burn them. Do your meditation. I haven't decided yet, but I may do an online component. It may just be a last minute thing. I may just announce it tomorrow and have like the camera in the room while we do the full moon ceremony. So if you guys want to be there with us, you can. It's late in the evening on Eastern time. So in Europe, it would be quite late, but I don't know. You guys have done weirder things. So maybe you guys will jump in anyway. But yeah, you guys know your full moon rituals now. You could take a bath, you can charge your crystals. But it's a supercharge. It's getting us ready for what is about to hit with the equinox. So right now, like I said, everything is building, and this full moon is basically another extension of that. So everything in this month is towards the same outcome, which is like, what are we building? What are we creating? Let's get really clear. And also let's get really confident. Let's get really confident in ourselves. Like I was telling Kendra, let's get really confident and stop saying we don't have it, or we don't know. Yes, we do. Like, we have the resources. We have so much more resources than we're ever aware of. Just because we don't have all the resources for a final goal does not mean we don't have resources necessary for a first step. We definitely have those resources. You know what I mean? Like, if we can't find them, it means we're not being present enough, we're not being clever enough, or we're not being expansive enough in our thought process. Like, we have acquired and accumulated so much stuff, so many people, so many things, so many ideas, so many thoughts. And it's like, to think we still don't have access to what we need to just at least take the first couple steps is just us not being confident in ourselves, us feeling like, oh, things are too big for me. You know, that just comes from being like, absolutely not. I could get it done. Like, get an I got it attitude about yourself and about what you're being called to do. God does not give you a calling or a mission and then not give you the resources for that mission. That doesn't make any sense. That will just set you up for a life of suffering. And like I said, if you believe in the God that we believe in, that I believe in, then that's a benevolent God that loves you and that wants you to have everything that is promised to you and that is shown to you, you know. So they don't give you a sign or a feeling or a mission or a excitement about something and then be like, oh, but you're never going to have resources for it. Suffer, you know. Like, I don't believe that. So it's more about just be clever, you know. One of the things I can say, Jen's in here, one of the things I can say I learned from Jenna, and like Jenna's value to me has definitely been that I realized from a 3D perspective, we're really programmed to see something for what it is, right? A flower is a flower, a candle is a candle, a carpet is a carpet. But Jenna's brain does not really work that way. I really don't know why, but if you showed Jenna like one thing, she can find 75 uses for it. And you're like, girl, I don't understand. Like, she'll turn a flower into a dress, into a coat, into a fucking piece of art. She'll hang it. It's always, I don't get it. I would have just used it as a flower and then thrown it in the trash. She has uses for it beyond anyone's wildest comprehension. And that's a big thing to consider. A lot of our 3D constructed brains have been trained to see things one way. That is the construct, right? It's very minimizing. It's a trap in that way. But truly, if you look at a resource and you ask yourself, how many things could I really do with this? And how far could I really take this? And how much could I really use this over and over again? You really be surprised with like how much like you could get out of just one thing. So, you know, even if you feel your resources are limited, know that they're not limited in their scope of use. Maybe you only have 1 or 2 things, but those 1 or 2 things might go a lot further than you think. They might be useful for 10 or 20 tasks. So do it, use what you have. I say that a lot too. It's kind of a lot of the time we're always asking for more, but we're not even using what's at our disposal. And ultimately, universe does not grant more to those who don't even use what they have. Why do you need more? You're not even using this. You know what I mean? So sometimes we get fixated on like, well, this isn't enough. Well, it's not enough. You didn't even use it yet. How do you know it's not enough? You know what I mean? Let it bring you to the next thing. Be rejoicing in the plenty that you have. Notice what is yours already, and through that creation, through that feeling of abundance and things and resources, we create more things and resources, right? We don't create from lack. So just kind of keep that in your mind this month as well. Well, I'm really happy you guys jumped in today. Thank you for talking to me. I hope that this was helpful. I hope this got you excited. Oh, Erica's asking, yeah, she always in the chat is comrade. So does anybody know how Erica changes her her name on Zoom?
What do you want your name?
I know Jenna doesn't know how to change it. This question was directed to her, but well, she knows how to make a flower, a coat hanger. She does not know how to change her name on Zoom.
You just have to go to your name, and then if you click it, you can like rename.
But I don't know if I don't think I can do that on my phone. And
oh yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Phone.
But this is, I think I figured it out. I've been signed into my brother's account because this is his old phone. And I just need to sign into my own account and just do that.
Oh yeah, or maybe from the computer change his name to Erica.
Well, yeah, on the computer I have my own account, but whenever I press the Zoom link on my phone, it just automatically takes me through his account, and then I'm just like, I'm stuck as Conrad in here. His name is Conrad, so it's his funny joke. So anyways, I figured it out.
Okay, good. Sorry, we're not great resources. After the resource speech. Anyway. We love you guys. Thank you for being here. As always, let us know if you have any questions. Use this exciting time. Birth, spring, flowers, live, joy, get out there. Also, some people have been asking me about some purification rituals. I was going to put them on the app, but this is just sitting here so I can tell you about this. There's a little, I don't actually even know what it is, but it's called Govinda Blue. And spiritualists use it as like a wash for things. So you can like make a little like a little blue tablet essentially, and you put it in water. You can make this right before the full moon, and then you can charge it under the full moon, and you can kind of leave it at your door. It's a purifier, so it's used a lot in Indian culture for that. But
Purifies the air?
It purifies everything. It purifies your home. It purifies, so like if you put it at the door, it keeps darkness from entering or exiting from your home. You can put it in a bath and like it'll purify a bath. It purifies a lot of different things. I have to look into it a little more as far as like if it's safe to use on you. I think people do bathe with it. I don't. I just make washes for like my things. But yeah, it's a nice little purifier and it's super cheap. You can get it online. You can literally search it and order it online. This little tablet was like $3 or something. So like it's a nice little tool if you're looking to like cleanse things or clear things, which is always nice with spring, right? We get into spring cleaning, there's a reason for that, right? Letting go of things creates space for new to come. So have a great week. I'll talk to you guys soon. I love you. Bye.